welcome to today's webinar on how to improve rapport with the customer, and got some brilliant speakers today. Christine Knott from Beyond the Box. For those people who are regulars on our website, you'll know that Christine writes a lot for us about rapport. Actually, some of our most popular articles brilliantly written by Christine. Christine, could you explain what you do and who are Beyond the Box?
Beyond the Box is a training consultancy, so we deliver training programs tailored and bespoke to a client's needs and requirements to move people from A to B, upskill them so that they perform with greater performance, work with greater performance. But I think interestingly enough now, so many skills that are happening cross over to personal life, so it's ways of improving your lifestyle as well.
And we're also joined today by Anthony Ryan from West Unified Communication Services. Anthony, explain a bit about what West do and what you do within West.
Yeah, and West deliver communication services worldwide, and that can range for everything from the networks that underlie those communications to unified communications and PBX type services, and to my particular specialty, which is contact center solutions, and specifically cloud-based contact center solutions, which is something I've been working on since the turn of the millennium, to be honest. And it's exciting that nowadays we can use the word cloud communications and people generally understand and know what the deal is, whereas back in 2000 that was a very different situation. So it's very exciting times for us at the moment.
Brilliant. Looking forward to your speech. So we're also taking a replay of today's webinar if you wanted to share it with your team, or if you've missed anything, or even if you just want to replay everything. And slides, they'll be available later on this afternoon, normally by about 3 o'clock. We're very efficient here. And they'll be available on this URL, callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. And anybody in attendance will also be sent this link anyway. Bit of housekeeping. Join us today on our chat room. The added bonus is that you can download the slides from both of our speakers. Lots to follow on from, so download them here. You can also download the chat log, which is available on this icon here. So as always, we are doing our chance to win a bottle of champagne. I actually have it here. I promised to share it. Or a box of chocolates. Sadly, we can't have one of those in the office, as we'd probably eat them all. For your best tips, or if you want to ask any of our panelists questions, so simply put them into the chat room and type #tip for a tip, or #question if you want to ask a question. So we've been asking everybody to type in 1 or 2 words what things work best to build rapport with your customers. And I think quite a few people have been replying and saying about using people's names frequently in the call. Amanda's said if you missed it, you have to be careful not to overuse people's names, otherwise it can feel a little contrived. So and Bill said, I think that using a customer's name too much may be based on the area in which you serve, which is very interesting. I think Bill was based in Florida. Christine, do you think there's a location-based thing about people overusing people's names?
I would take his lead on that. Clearly he's working there and doing some work, so I think it's an interesting concept that he's put forward. And I would say that it's probably right. We talk about how people differ from one area to another. Some people are a little naturally more friendly in some areas than possibly others. I don't know, maybe it's down to the individual, but some expectations in different places, and customs as well come into play in different areas, particular customs. So I'd go along with that. If he said that, I'm right behind it. Good piece of information.
I'm going to start with our first poll, which is on a scale of 1 to 5, how good is your organisation at building rapport with customers? So I will launch this first poll. There we go. So your options are very good, good, average, poor, or very poor. Christine, what are you hoping to see before your presentation?
Well, listening to the feedback and the comments that some people have been making, I would say that some are really very good out there. So, if we only ever learn one thing, or perhaps try and do something different, it's always good to keep moving forward.
Well, we've had about 70% of the audience have voted, so we'll give it a couple more seconds. Right, and we'll close that and I'll share the results. So some great results. 13% say very good, 47% say good, 33% say average, 8% say poor. So hopefully, Christine, you'll be able to share some tips with them. And brilliantly, 0% have said very poor. So well done, everyone. I think, you know, pat on the back for those positive results. So, Christine, what do you think about that?
I think I might as well go home now. It sounds like we've got some people out
there. So
that's really
I'll
good.
hide those results. And so kicking off today's agenda is Christine. So I will hand the baton over to you and be able to run through your presentation.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome. I do hope that based on the information that you've all just been giving to us, I do hope that you do find something useful from today's session. Now, let's kick off then. Every conversation that you have at work has an objective. Either you've made the call because you want to achieve something with the customer, or the customer's made the call to you because they want to achieve something. So whatever that something is, it makes sense if you can get there in the quickest, easiest and most enjoyable way. And sometimes we have to deliver bad news to the customer, and when that's the case, it's so much easier if we have rapport with them. Likewise, when we want something from the customer, it's easier to ask for it when we've got good rapport. So what is this magic potion called rapport that makes things easier, faster and more enjoyable? The definition of rapport is a feeling of commonality. People like people who like themselves. So if you want to build rapport, demonstrate commonality. It's as simple as that. So why do we need to have a connection with people and build rapport? Well, the answer, because we're human beings, and as human beings we have certain needs which, when achieved, make us feel so much more comfortable. And to explain that, I've got here the slide of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And he sort of stated certain things that we actually need, and two of them, safety and belongingness, are the ones that I want to actually focus on at the moment. So if we do focus on those, in the main they tell us that people seek safe, non-confrontational environments and want to get along with others. Simple as that. So to demonstrate this now, I'd like you to think of a time maybe when you've been on holiday, when you met someone or a group of people. What did you have in common? Did you come from the same area at home? Did you know someone where they lived? Do you like the same football team? Same sense of humour? Staying at the same hotel? The list goes on. But there will have been something that you had in common which resulted in you being drawn to them. It might simply have been on the fact that you were on holiday together. And that's rapport, that commonality. Now think of a time when that's happened to you at work, a time when you've been speaking to someone on the phone and you've just simply connected with them. In those instances, the call will have been safe, non-confrontational, and a relationship in some way, even if it's only for a short time. Relationship was built, and that's rapport. So how much easier, more enjoyable and more productive would your job be if you could achieve this on most of the telephone calls that you have with your customers? Most of your customers will be open to it because, of course, they're like the rest of us. They want a safe, non-confrontational environment and an enjoyable interaction and some form of relationship for the time, even if it's only a short time that they're on the telephone. There are always going to be customers who contact you with the intention of being confrontational, and I'm sure most of you have come across those. And in such cases, continue to do all you can to build rapport, but I will revisit that subject later on in this session. Building rapport is one step, but then we have to maintain it for the duration of the call. And during this session, I want to share a few key points on how to do that. But remember, literally everything you do on the call will either strengthen rapport or break it. The points I want to share with you then today are the importance of smiling on the call, how we should start a conversation, the importance of listening, demonstrate empathy over sympathy, and using the customer's name. All of these points will in some way help to build a relationship and seek out that commonality between the two of you. So how do we find this commonality that we've been talking about then with someone, especially when you're only allowed a short time sometime to spend on the phone and when you've never spoken to anybody, this particular person before? Well, we know that from Maslow's model that in the main, most people prefer to avoid confrontation and seek that safety and security. They want to get on with others, and that's one of the things, therefore, that we have in common. One of our most basic instincts, according to Maslow, is that safety. So whether we meet someone for the first time over the telephone or face to face, we want to know if this person is friend or foe, cowboy or red Indian, whichever side of the fence that you actually sit on, if you're into cowboys and Indians. So the first thing we have to do is to make them feel this sense of safety. And you have to feel safe as well yourself in order for the call to be okay and be natural and be yourself, as we were talking before earlier in the room earlier on. We do this subconsciously, and one of the first signals we pick up on is how a person looks. Do they feel safe? Do they look like a nice person? If they do, logic tells us there's a good chance of them being okay. And the signal that we look for is a smile. However large or small, we see it. And what's even more bizarre, when we can't see the person, as you can't when you're on the phone, we can actually hear it. So let's focus on how we can hear a smile, because of course we can't see it. We actually can't see the customers when we're on the telephone. And that leads me to the first point that I want to share with you, the importance of smiling on the telephone. When we're on the phone, our first words are the words that we use of greeting. We say hello, hi, welcome, and the way we say these words sends a message to the other person. If you smile when you say your greeting will be more friendly and upbeat. Like I said, they can see a smile even when they can't hear it. So how does it work? You may be familiar with the 7-38-55 communication rule from Albert Mehrabian. It's widely used to demonstrate the importance of body language and vocal emotion when speaking with someone. 7% refers to the words, 38% to the vocal emotion, tone, pitch, etc., and a massive 55% to body language. Now, vocal emotion and body language are linked, and the way that they're linked is that they betray our thoughts. Scary thought, but any thoughts that we have, any mood, is completely betrayed in our voice and our body language. So when we have that thought, our body will replicate it in some way. And this in turn affects our tone of voice, revealing our emotions, whether they're fear, anger, happiness, frustration, and so on. So we can't see body language on the phone, but we can become super reliant on the voice and the emotion it reveals. And I'm sure many of you use that to pick up on what your customer might be feeling and thinking. So subconsciously, when you're talking to your customer over the telephone, you will be listening to the way that they say the words, because this will tell you their mood and how they are feeling. So how does all of this link to the customer hearing a smile? Here's a little exercise that I'd like you to try out. I'll explain it first and then stop the session for a few seconds for you to try it. I want you to think about biting into a lemon or a raw onion, and whilst you do that, I want you to say out loud the words, hello. So have a go now.
I feel that I need to say this. So. Oh, hello. That was my imaginary lemon.
Lemon, Rachel,
yes.
Well, some of you, I'm sure, perhaps will have done that. And if you have, what I want you to think about, what happened to your face? Did you smile? Did you laugh? Was there a bit of a grimace going on when you said the words hello? And when you did say those words, how did your voice sound? So if you were grimacing, your voice probably sounded strained, but if you were laughing or smiling, it might have been, your voice will have been more light-hearted. And you'll have either been laughing or grimacing, dependent on what your reaction is to the lemon or the onion when you thought about it. So this little exercise proves how our thoughts are betrayed by our body language and tone of voice. So when you're smiling, that full-on grin, the tone of your voice will be higher, faster, with a much more positive tone, and your customer will hear it. So that's how they hear the smile. So we've learnt now then how and why the customer will hear you smiling, and we've learnt that a smile sends the message that you are a friendly and safe person to talk to. That's the first thing they're going to pick up on. So here's the challenge: smiling when you don't feel like it, smiling when you want to go home because the call has just come through, and smiling when something about the customer reminds you perhaps of a previous bad customer experience and maybe sends a shiver down your spine. Now, these could be reasons that would prevent you from smiling normally, but we live in a real world, one which is sometimes removed from training, and the perfect customer scenario isn't always going to be on the end of your telephone. In the real world, we do have mindsets, as I've just mentioned before, and they have a huge influence on how we react to certain situations. So in order to change them, that needs input from you. So if that is the case, if you do ever recognise yourself thinking those thoughts, if you could spend some time thinking about the benefit that Rapport offers you in terms of a more harmonious call, which could be resolved sooner, it might help you think about changing the mindset about the thoughts that you've had. So let's just take a look at those ideas now. If we take a look at changing your mindset, so instead of thinking, oh, I don't feel like smiling and a call's just come through, change your mindset and think, well, smiling will start the rapport process and help me to more easily and readily serve the customer in a much better and faster way. So that's one way you could think of it. Instead of thinking, oh, it's nearly time to go home and this call has come through, change your mindset and possibly say, well, smiling will start the rapport process and help me to serve the customer better and faster, then I can go home. And instead of thinking, wow, this customer sounds just like that difficult one that I had last week, change your mindset and think, well, yes, maybe they do, but what other evidence do I have that they're going to be like that customer? I don't have any evidence at all. So I'm going to focus on them as an individual and continue and focus on building rapport. So, if we think about smiling every time that you've picked up the phone and think about that as being your start to building rapport, that will give you some headway into some of the other points that I'm going to talk to you about. But just for now, we've learned that why a smile will lead to people feeling safe and more sociable. We've learned that people do actually hear you smile, or lack of it, through the tone of your voice. We know that your customer will use the tone of your voice as well to determine if you're friendly or not. So they're going to be doing exactly the same as you. And we've also touched on the fact that you might need to change your mindset, and you can. That is down to you. You can do it. So all of this is important because if your customer gets a negative message about you, if they don't hear you smiling, rapport is going to be more difficult to start from the onset. So remember, people like people who are like themselves, and most of us would like to think that we are nice, safe people to talk to. Let's look at the next part now, which is how to start the conversation. And in this, I want to cover two ways of starting the conversation. We start with, some of you may have to start the conversation via a script, others you might have the opportunity of free dialogue. But let's look at the script first of all. Now this is challenging because you might be asked to use words that you wouldn't normally use in conversation, and we're asking you to be your normal self and be as natural as you can. So if you're using words that aren't normally used, it could limit your personality on the phone. So to overcome this, spend some time working with it and maximise your vocal emotion to make the script more interesting for both yourself and your customer. And if you can change some of the words with your line manager, maybe they will allow you to do that if it's something more suited to you. The problem is when you're repeating the script time after the time when you answer the phone or you make that call, you're in danger of getting bored with it. And if we know that your body and your vocal emotion reveals and betrays your mood, then the customer is going to pick up on it. So remember too that people like people who are like themselves, and if you are using the script and starting to sound boring, I don't think you've got many robots that'll be calling you in looking to speak to another robot on the phone, and that's what we can start to sound like if we're not too careful. So look at how you can enliven your script and put some vocal emotion back into it. Let them hear your friendly nature and the way that you say words with a smile on the face. So the second point was the free dialogue, which allows you to choose how you start the conversation with your customer. And this is generally a much better option than a script, and will enable this rapport building process much sooner and much earlier in the call. If rapport is based on commonality, use your opening words to seek it. Now, we spent a few minutes before the actual seminar started, just on the call in the room before the meeting room, and two of the things that we were talking about was the weather and where we were from. So two key things that would really, really help us to build rapport. It happened naturally with us earlier on, and it will happen naturally with your customer. So easy topics, common to everybody, and non-threatening as well. So an example of how you might be able to do that. Say that as part of your call you need to confirm your customer's address and the reference that they live in Manchester. You could respond with, oh, so how's the weather in Manchester today? Gee, it's been really cold down here in London, if indeed London is where you're living. But you get the gist of what I'm saying. Now, during the conversation, other opportunities where you can build rapport will present themselves. Maybe you know somebody in the area that they've mentioned that they live. Perhaps they mentioned family, a recent holiday. Anything that allows you to have that normal and natural conversation, person to person, and demonstrate that commonality. Example, so as part of a conversation, they might reference that they've just come back from a holiday in Crete. And so you could respond with, oh, lovely, did you have a good time? I went to Crete a few years ago. What did you think of it? Now, I'm not suggesting that you ignore the nature of the call, and the reason that the call is there to focus on discovering areas of commonality and having a chat to demonstrate how nice you are. What I am suggesting is that when you hear the opportunities, and they will get presented, that you can find that commonality, seize them, take them, and that will help to start that natural flow of conversation and start the rapport building process. So, for example, carrying on with the holiday, to get back into the work mode, you could say, so you said you discovered the problem when you returned from holiday. How long has it been happening? So move between the conversation that deals with the content of the call and seizing those opportunities to build rapport and make that commonality. It's the same as having a conversation with a friend. I'd like to talk now a little bit about listening. And to hear the opportunity, because obviously to hear the opportunities that are going to be presented to you by the customer, you've got to be listening and listening to literally everything that they actually say. And I once read a quote from a lady, and she was called Rachel Raymond. And the quote was, the most basic and powerful way to connect to another person is to listen. So, the most basic and powerful way to connect to another person is to listen. Repeated that in case people weren't listening. Now, I don't know about you, but I was never actually taught how to listen in school. I was taught to read, I was taught to write, which are both really important communication tools, but I was never actually taught how to listen. I don't know, were you? Was anybody out there perhaps taught how to listen? I was told to listen on many occasions, and I was also told to stand in the corner in the classroom because I wasn't listening. I was always talking instead, which I don't find difficult. And that's the challenge that lies in most of us. Too often we want to jump in, finish a sentence, or pass a comment on something that someone has said. And all the time that we're thinking about doing that, we've actually stopped listening. So if you think about it, how does it make you feel when someone is obviously eager to respond to something that you've said before you've finished, or starts to talk before you've finished? It's not a nice feeling, is it? It can be frustrating for you, and it can most certainly make you feel that the other person isn't interested in what you have to say. So how is it going to help rapport that you have with a customer if you try to finish the sentences? So give some thought to that if you jump in because you've preempted what they're going to say. So let's hear that lovely quote again. The most basic and powerful way to listen to another person is to connect with them. Listening offers a way to connect and builds rapport, and when you've been able to demonstrate to a caller that you've listened to them and taken an interest in what they've said, it's going to make them feel really good, make them feel valued, and they will like you all the more because of it. So let's just think about how we can improve listening skills. It's all well and good me saying, become a better listener. Here are some tips on how to do it. First of all, stop yourself from interrupting. So if you hear yourself about to do it, stop and focus on what the customer's saying. Stop yourself from preempting. Again, if you hear yourself about to jump in and preempt what they were going to say, thinking you know what the answer is, stop, because invariably you will get it wrong. Start listening to what people say. And as an extra tip, because we have dreadful memories, if it helps, write down the key points that they've actually said. I find that really useful at the moment. Now, most of your customers will be surprised and delighted to hear a caller taking the initiative to listen to them. It might sound bizarre, particularly if you are a good listener, but I know I've been on calls many times and people simply do not listen to me when I'm making a call to a call centre. And one other thing as well, if you think about putting a few ums and ahs just to demonstrate that you're really on board with what they're actually saying. Another way is to say, can I just clarify what you've actually just said? Can I just go over it again? The fact that you've asked for clarification, or if you can repeat it, demonstrates to that person that you really have taken an interest and that you're actually double checking to hear what they've said. So that really does support the rapport building process. Empathy versus sympathy. We often hear the term, oh, show empathy with your customer, demonstrate empathy with your customer. But what is it? Sometimes we hear sympathy and empathy being confused, so I thought I'd demonstrate and explain the two to you. And to do that, I'm going to tell you a story. And this is the story. One day, a good Samaritan was walking along the road and heard cries for help. They were coming from a deep well by the side of the road. Someone had fallen into the well. Wanting to help the person in distress, the good Samaritan climbed down inside the well. It helped him to fully understand how the trapped person was feeling and in a good position to offer words of sympathy and comfort. Now I'll tell you a different version of the story. A good Samaritan was walking along the road and heard cries for help. They were coming from a deep well by the side of the road. Someone had fallen into the well. Wanting to help the person in distress, the Good Samaritan listened to the trapped man's plight to fully understand the situation. By understanding the situation, he becomes more aware of it. He can offer words of support to demonstrate his awareness of how the situation is affecting them. And he can also demonstrate and let them know that he is working on a solution to rescue them. Two versions of the story. If you were the person that was trapped in the well, which version of the events would you prefer the Good Samaritan to take? In the first version, the Good Samaritan offers words of sympathy. In the second version, he demonstrates empathy. He understands but is doing something about it. So consider how the use of empathy over sympathy will be received by your customer. They want you to resolve their problem and they'd like you to acknowledge how it has affected them. They might spend a few minutes telling you what the problem is, and they might share with you how they feel about it and the consequences it has had upon them. You now have two choices. Do you fully immerse yourself in the problem with words of, oh, I understand how you must be feeling, that must be awful for you? Or do you clarify what you've heard to check that you have all the facts, acknowledge that the situation has consequences which are distressing, and that you can, yes, I appreciate how this is affecting you, but fully commit to resolving the problem and addressing it. Using your listening skills will help you to do this and demonstrate a greater depth of empathy, and empathy goes a long way to building rapport. We talked in the room earlier on about using the customer's name, and a few points were listed on that, so I just want to share some more thoughts with you. It's pretty obvious to most of us why we have names. It differentiates us from others and references us as individuals. But why do we like to hear the sound of our own name? because many of us actually do. I read on the internet once that it provides validation. The words I read were, "You are an individual, you matter, and you have value." And these are often conveyed by others simply addressing us by name. I also read, "A person's name is the sweetest sound in any language, simply because it affirms our worth." Now, reading that makes sense as to why we like nicknames and pet names. My nickname at school was Naughty. My name's Christine Knott. There were many Christines in my class, but only one Naughty, and that was me. When I heard it, I knew people were addressing me, and only me, and that meant that they had singled me out by my nickname, and I liked it. It made me feel good. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you create nicknames for your customers, though you might choose to on occasions, but I wouldn't suggest you use them. What I am suggesting is that you use their real name to make them feel that they are an individual and that they matter to you and that they have value as a caller. It's not a difficult thing to do. Simply gain the name at the beginning of the call and use it. Some callers, when asked permission, are happy for you to call them by the first name, but that, of course, is for you to decide based on who the person is and the length of the call. Whichever name you use, or have permission to use it wisely and appropriately, not just at the beginning and end of the conversation, but in the middle. Here are some examples of how you might be presented with an opportunity to use the name. So what I'd like to do now, Mrs. Jones, is, or if you had reason to tell them something, "Mrs. Jones, can you tell me just a little bit more about, or can I explain to you?" So long as you don't use it to excess, using the customer's name adds value to the relationship between you and them. I mentioned earlier that sometimes people make a call with every intention of being confrontational. So why they choose to be this way is another story, but how does that affect you? It's not a great feeling, I know, and can certainly affect your mindset and the way that you respond to them. You now know that you have the power to change your mindset, so do so. And accept that a confrontational customer, that's their mindset and it's their issue. Always stay calm and avoid letting it affect you. In the early stages of the conversation, until they have let off steam, this type of customer is unlikely to want you to spend time finding commonality, and probably you won't have a chance to discuss the weather or anything else. But in most cases, they will calm down. And if you've demonstrated the actions of general building rapport, especially the listening, the smiling and the empathy, it will lead to a more harmonious and productive call. So, to summarise, we're looking for common ground. And some of those things that we talked about were smile, start that conversation in a friendly way, listen, demonstrate empathy, not sympathy, and stay in control, and use the customer's name. Now that brings us to the end of the session, and it's possible that some of you might have heard all of these things before. I do hope that by hearing them again, it's perhaps made you think in a different way. Oh, let's try this, I've not tried that for a long time. Or if there's things that you've not heard before, maybe if you'd like to have a go, make a few notes after this session to think of the things that you might do differently. Either way, I'm sure we'd love to hear what's worked for you and what hasn't. But in the meantime, thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. I know that a lot of people have said that they were saying out loud, hello. I think a few people said they felt very silly doing it in their offices out loud. So thanks for that. We've had quite a lot of the audience sending in their own tips, so we'll hopefully get through a load of these now. Charlie said, pick up on the small things. A dog in the background. Are they at work? Did you notice it was their birthday when you took their details? These small things build real rapport rather than throwaway comments or tricks to manufacture rapport, which I think is a great one. Bill said, recap what you went over with the customer at the end of the call so that they feel part of the solution. Christine, I know that you mentioned recapping things and making sure you clarify them. think that one's a great one, don't you think?
I love the one about the dog in the background, and absolutely right. These are the natural things that going back to being yourself. And for some people have a natural ability to do that, and that will come eventually when you get the basics right. But whoever mentioned that well done, and thank you for picking it up, because terrific point, great point.
Joel said, involve the customer as to what you are doing. Avoid or minimise dead air in the call. Gemma said, as we'll speak to a customer a few times before they visit us, my team takes notes of little personal things ready for the next call. Gemma's mentioned the dog, holidays, etc., ready for the next person calling them.
Yeah.
Terry said...
I love the naturalism in picking up on those things, and the observation. I think observation is a real key word, and naturally that's linked to listening, isn't it? It's listening. It's about listening for those things that are over and above the normal conversation. So great things coming in.
Terry said active listening is the key, and acknowledging what they've said. Claire said, actually listen to what they've said. Don't just go into the company spiel. Address the issues that they're bringing to you. Anthony, I don't know what you think about what Claire said.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very interesting point, and I think where the company spiel is often thought of as this sort of boilerplate text that you have to read out from a script, and we'd like to think that scripts can be more flexible and dynamic than that, provide the tools that advisors need to be able to interact and build that rapport, but without being step A, step B, step C, read this, read that, read the other. So yeah, I think that's a really important point.
And we'll take a few more just before we carry on. Helen said, tell your customer your name and that you'll be looking after them today. Remind the customer again at the call's close. I think that's a great one. I think we've done tips before where we've said about, oh, by the way, my name's Rachel. Please make sure you know that, so that when you call next time, you know to ask for me if that's possible. Not always possible. Bill said, take ownership in the call with the customer and let them know that you're going to do everything that you can to resolve their issue. This will make the customer's perception of the ease of calling customer service. Christine, what do you think about Bill's tip?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I guess all of these things have worked for people, haven't they? And I think that is wonderful that they're actually sharing them, because if they've proven to work, then great. If you find something that works, great. But I think for so many people that you hear on the telephone, not everybody is a natural speaker that's employed to work on the phone. I think that's the challenge a lot of people actually have. It doesn't come to them quite naturally. So what I'm hearing is some really good experience tips coming through, which are terrific. Once you've got that, you're in the mode of doing the natural ability bit. It's good.
Brilliant
Feedback.
Right, well, we'll come back to some of those tips. As you can see, there's lots coming through. So delighted to hand the baton over to Anthony Ryan from West Unified Communication Services. Anthony, I think we're starting your presentation with a poll, aren't we? So the poll is, how well does your organisation address your customers' interaction preferences? So I will launch this one now. And what are you hoping to see, Anthony?
Well, I think this is something that's has been moving up from difficult to easy over the last few years in terms of the choices that we give to customers and how easy it is to implement that from a technology perspective. So I would like to think it's going to be in the top half, as we saw in the previous poll. But it is something that hinges on the technology and the facilities that are available, and how easy it is to blend that into your existing customer contact environment.
Great. Well, I'll close that down and share the results. So we've had 41% average, 35% good, 15% very well, 8% poor, and 1% very poor. Anthony, I don't know how you feel. Obviously slightly lower than possibly the previous poll that we ran. Yeah,
I mean that's interesting. I think it shows that there is work to do to help businesses provide those preferential modes of contact for their customers, and that's our job to help make that easier. And next time we come back and do this in a year's time, we'll see that as being shifted around towards the top part of the scale there.
Yeah. All right, so I'll hide those results and pass the baton over to you. I'll make you the presenter.
Thank you very much. So hopefully you can see my screen now.
We can, yes.
Excellent. And so I think what I wanted to do today, and I think that poll gives us a very good lead into it, is to take Christine's insight into how important it is that we have a rapport with the customer, and how that is critical to the speed and easiness of the conversations that we have with our customers, and start to look at the technology and whether that's an enabler that facilitates the building of that rapport, and look, is it an obstacle? Are there areas where technology is getting in the way of building that rapport? Now, I think it's fairly obvious to say it, but it's worth repeating that if a customer has a positive experience, then that's going to convert into a sale or a renewal or the resolution of the quicker resolution of an issue for the customer. Whereas on the flip side, a poor customer experience can lead to lost revenue. It can lead to lost sales opportunities. It can lead to we can lose the potential and the possibility to build a rapport with the customer if we're starting off from a poor customer experience. And I think the question that I wanted to ask today, specifically thinking about the nature of rapport between us as a business and us as advisors and agents when we're talking to our customers, is, do our conversations flow? And I don't just mean in voice terms in speaking to customers, but I also think about conversations that start on other channels as well, such as email or web chat. But from my perspective, I think having a natural conversation, a conversation that flows, that isn't interrupted by uncomfortable pauses, it isn't interrupted by technology failures or the clunkiness of trying to load a new screen, all of these kind of things. If we have a conversation that flows, then we've got the maximum opportunity to implement the techniques that Christine has been giving us. So that's going to be critically important for us all over the next few years. Some recent research actually done in 2014 by Walker predicts that by 2020 it's going to be the customer experience that overtakes all of the other differentiators that we've previously had with price and product. As markets get flatter, as products and services get more equal in terms of the offerings, especially on a global basis, then it's going to be how the customer feels from starting to engage with us as a business for a sale or for a product or for a service, through to the support and the life cycle of that. It's that whole experience that's going to make the difference to make our brand stand out. So, that starts right at the point where we may be trying to sell a product or a service, and it comes all the way through to us in the contact center sphere. How do we maximize the possibility to build good customer experiences in our part of that whole cycle? And how do we manage that as call center managers, as advisors and agents within a contact center? How do we best help build a positive customer experience? Now, it's we've got all of the techniques that Christine has given us to enable us to build these kind of natural and friendly and positive rapports. But one of the things that we all have to take account of now is that customer interactions are getting more and more complex. It's true that according to research done by Verint last year, that 83% of consumers still believe that speaking to a customer service advisor on the phone or in store is always going to be important, and I would absolutely agree with that. But from a personal preference, I'll always start with an email or a web chat. And sure, I might want to pivot and switch to a voice call, but and that's often where things get resolved. But that's a complex interaction. I've requested some assistance from an advisor by web chat. Now I need them to look up my details. Then I want them to give me a call and talk to me directly because we need to get this resolved quickly. This is a real challenge for us to manage within our contact centers. So those conversations are getting more complex. The information that we have about our customers and what we want to tell to our customers is getting more complex. And I think it's technology that brings the value here and helps you glue that all together. And it's this glue that's important in building building the rapport. Now, we've already done this poll, so we'll skip ahead from that. So, thinking about the customer journey, as I mentioned before, it could be starting a long time before the voice call ever hits your advisors. It could have already started with a web chat. It may have started with a customer surfing the web, looking for products, looking for a service, having a query. There's a whole range of things that can happen before we before we even get the opportunity to connect in real time with the customer. So we have to design our workflows around this. And again, I'm using the word flow here because I think it's the flow that makes it natural and efficient and easy. We need to understand what the customer wants and direct them to the right place, use a flow to direct them to the right place to get what they want. And we also need to empower ourselves as agents and advisors to be able to recognize what those customers' needs are and identify them. And these are all easy things to talk about, but it can be and has been historically a challenge to deliver a seamless customer journey throughout all of these different stages of their life cycle and throughout their process. So what we want to do as a solutions provider, and let's not think about technology specifically here. I think about customer solutions in my role as a solutions consultant. I want to think about helping organizations build that seamless dialogue mechanism over lots of different channels. This was actually a survey that we did last year. It was a survey of about 200 different contact center decision makers, and it's come across very strongly that 88% of contact center decision makers expect the digital methods of interacting with customers and advisors to take over voice calls by 2020. So voice calls are still important now, and they will still be important in 2020, but we need to blend this all together to give the customers the opportunity to chat with us easily over the web, to be able to provide self-service opportunities for customers, because again, if we make this all seamless and easy at the point when they are in, finally reaching a live person to interact with, then they're going to be in a good mood. The opportunity is there to build on that positive experience and to build that rapport. If the customer's already angry because they've been frustrated by a disconnected web chat or email form process or a self-service system that's taken them into an infinite loop of IVR voice menus, if they're already angry by the time they talk to you, then your opportunity to build the rapport that Christine has been working so hard to encourage is rapidly disappearing, very, very hard to build on. So these are the areas that we're looking at, and I think we just want to throw it open to the audience now to just get a feel for how you feel about how you're able to meet those preferences.
So we've got another poll, and let me just launch it now. Got something else up. What is stopping your contact center from meeting customer interaction preferences? So it's a multiple choice one. You can pick more than one option. The company doesn't have a digital strategy, budget for new technology or changes to existing, agent training, performance management capabilities, legacy systems from different vendors, or lack of understanding of how contact center can be improved. Anthony, I don't know what your bets are on if you were a betting man.
I would put my money on legacy systems from different vendors, because we've had specialist companies, over the last 10, 15 years who each specialize in voice or email or web chat. We may have point solutions in place in many, contact center organizations, and the challenge there is gluing them together and making them work effectively, because again, if they don't work together effectively, then you're losing the opportunity to build a natural flowing conversation. So that's what my money would be on, but let's see what the
Fab. So a few seconds left, and I'm going to close it down and share the results. So an interesting one.
Hi everyone. It appears we might have lost Rachel.
It does seem that way. I'm still here.
Yes. What I'll do is here's the results for everyone. I will pass back across to you now, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks very much. I mean, I could just see very quickly there from the results that indeed, legacy systems from different vendors is a significant issue. But of course, yeah, budget is always a challenge in any organization, and especially where, if contact centers are often seen as cost centers rather than profit centers. So yeah, that's very, very interesting. Can I just check, Claude, that you can still see my screen and that the audience can see my screen, and then I'll carry on.
The screen's not popping up just yet, Anthony.
Okay, let's try that again. There we go.
There you go.
How's that?
Yeah, back up now.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, I hope that Rachel and Christine can get back to us in short time. So, in research that we did that's actually not been published yet, this was again some research that we did last year as West. We discovered that of the contact center decision makers that were surveyed at that time, that less than half of them agreed that their contact center was meeting customer needs. We all know what customers want. They want their issues, and I think, as Christine said, they want their issues resolved in a quick and easy possible. Whether that's an easy, quick sale, I just want to buy something, I want it to happen now, and I want it to come through, or I need to resolve a specific issue that I've got. It's got to be something that's slick and easy, and it's often technology that's providing the obstacles here. Now, it has historically been difficult to think about, how do we use technology to provide something that matches a customer's experience. We've all been in voicemail jail. We've all left voicemails that have not been responded to, or we've gone around these, infinite loops of interactive voice response, voice menus. We've entered our account numbers and then been, talking to an advisor after queuing for a few minutes and finding out we've got to repeat our account number yet again. These are all things that can be difficult to design and join together. So what we want to do is we want to provide a suite of technologies that actually empower the organization to design the interaction, but also to empower the agents, empower advisors to be able to enjoy a seamless and easy conversation. Now, there's a lot of words here on the screen here. We've got skill-based routing, we've got voice, email, web chat, we've got data-directed routing, which is the ability to, for example, look up a customer's account number in a CRM system. We've got the ability to call back customers in queue if wait times are extended. We can just give them the opportunity to be called back when we have the capacity to do so within the center. Lots of different words here, and these things have often been associated with point solutions within the contact center. Our vision is to build on that word flow that I mentioned before, and that's through what we call our contact flow editor. We want you, as the people who work in and run your contact centers, to be able to design the flows that are natural for you. We want to put the technology into your hands. We want you to be able to paint, as you can see is happening on the screen here, the experience that the customer will have with simple drag and drop. Build a flow. How do we want to identify the customer? Where do we want to route them to? We don't care whether that's via email or web chat. We don't care whether that's going to be a voice call. We can handle all of those things within this one neat flow. And that means that the customer has a seamless journey from the second they arrive to the point at which it's presented to an agent or an advisor. And again, these same flow tools are used to design the interactions that the agents have. And if you find that something's working for you today and it changes tomorrow, then you have the ability to go in and change that very, very easily, and to just repaint and redraw that experience. So if the customer's experience through this flow works seamlessly and we're delivered with the right information to the right agents at the right location, then we've got the perfect starting point for continuing to build on that, and certainly not interrupting the rapport that we have with the customer. So technology can do these wonderful things, and as I mentioned, I think when we were talking about in the warm up for the call today, the development of cloud technology enables us to be able to offer these kind of flows and solutions at anywhere on the planet. It doesn't matter whether you're in a formal call center, whether you're in an informal call center, whether you've got home workers. We can provide a joined-up customer experience wherever you work, wherever your advisors work, and wherever your customers are. So, we can use this kind of technology to enable that unified customer experience. Now, I think with the interruption there we had with losing Rachel, and Rachel, I'm not sure if you're back. Are you back now?
I'm sorry. I think in the excitement of the last poll, I managed to mute myself. So apologies for that. So we'll do another poll, and I will share it and try not to mute myself this time. So the question we're asking is, if you were a customer, how would you rate your contact center? The options are very well, good, average, poor, and very poor. Anthony, what are you hoping to see, or what do you think we'll be seeing?
Well, I think we'll be seeing, the large majority of answers being in the top half. But I think based on what we saw before about the challenges with both budget and integration of legacy technology vendors, I think there are some challenges there that are going to leave us some scope to improve, so that again we can get everybody, ticking the very good box by sometime in the next couple of years.
So I'm going to close this down now and share the results. So we've had 15% very good, 49% good, 31% average, 6% poor, and once again 0% very poor. So hopefully, Anthony, that's good to know.
Yeah, that was in line with my expectations, and yeah, we definitely want to boost that top line there. And I think to do that, it's going to be key to us all to keep these tips in mind. And Christine gave us some excellent insight and advice on how to manage and build that rapport. And that starts with understanding how customers' journeys are changing and how customers' behaviours are changing. And so we need to be able to rapidly adapt our processes to work around that. Sorry, I'll show my screen again. There we go. So that was the first point. We need to understand how our customers are changing in terms of behaviors and think about their journey across multiple channels. It's rarely just a web chat. It could extend from web chat to email to voice and back again. And we need to be able to manage all of that within one suite of easily managed technologies. So we need to reassess our legacy technologies, not to be afraid of changing and adapting, even when there's still some life in those systems that we have in place. It's still very possible, especially with cloud technologies, to be able to overlay new features and functions on top of your existing technology. So don't be afraid to change that and to try that, because you'd be surprised at how quickly the results can come. And most important, giving the agents the tools to be able to, both the knowledge tools and the ability to use Christine's insights, and we had a great example before, didn't we, about the stiff script. We want agents and advisors to be able to do their own job with their own personalities, but still provide them with the tools that they need when unexpected things happen, and to provide those wherever they're working. And lastly, plan for the future. Let's get those stats in the next poll up to very good across the board, because we can easily do that by focusing on those particular areas and using these kind of cloud technologies to help build on that. So thanks very much for that. I guess if we have time to go over for a few questions, Rachel.
We do, yes. So I will share my screen. Hopefully you can all see that. So we've had lots in, so we'll try and get through as many as possible. Barry said, we have no call scripts. All my team are free to handle calls as they see fit. Charlie's asked, how do you show empathy on an email? This is one that the majority of our teams struggle with. Christine, I don't know what your suggestion for that one is.
I think it's possibly following exactly the same route. Great question, incidentally, really good question. But to follow the same route, that it's a case of clarifying the situation. This is our understanding. This is what we want, and we can appreciate that this has caused the problem. What we want to do now is X, Y, and Z. I think so many people are happy when people have just acknowledged the consequences of the issue. And so the empathy from respect of the email is still exactly the same. If this helps, whoever sent this in, outline the key points as you know them. Here are the points. We understand that this is affecting you in such a way and can understand how frustrating this must be, etc. What we want to do now is resolve the issue as quickly as possible, and possibly if there's an opportunity, what the plan of action actually is to do. It's more about people being informed. You will always get some people who look at sympathy vote and enjoy it, but in the main, people just want to get things resolved and they don't want the sympathy, just sort it for me. And more important than that, before that, acknowledge what it's done, acknowledge what the outcome's been.
Charlie's also asked, if rapport drops due to taking call after call, does this mean rapport is directly linked to motivation? So if motivation drops, so does energy and rapport. Christine, just a quick answer, if possible.
Interesting one, because rapport drops due to taking call after call. It's a case of being fresh for every single call. Your rapport has to be with that individual customer from every call. I would imagine if you're not feeling great, your motivation will drop. So it's going back to what I said. It's treating every call as an individual basis. And if you are taking call after call, you've got to build rapport with every single person. But motivation, that's down to the individual. It's all up here. And if your motivation drops, then yeah, if you let your energy levels drop, then that's going to happen as well.
Unfortunately, we're at the top of the hour, so if you'd just like to put in 1 or 2 words into the chat room, what did you like best about today's webinar? That would be great. The winning tip, we've received so many that we're actually going to look at them after the webinar, so we'll announce it on Twitter later this afternoon, and it will also be on the website. Just a reminder that the replay and the slides, there was lots covered today, will be available on callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. Got lots of webinars coming up. Our online conference is in a few weeks' time, so register for them on this link below. And I just want to say thank you to both of our speakers today, to Christine Knott from Beyond the Box. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And Anthony Ryan from West Unified Communication Services. Thank you very much as well.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.